Kia ora, g'day, welcome back here once again with part two of my reaction to SAS hero Colin MacLachlan, or MacLachlan, talks about PTSD and when he was captured and tortured. So let's jump back in.
More time in their hands. They're probably used to being busy all the time, regimented, getting up early and being kind of told what to do. So then when they come back into normality, it's easy to go, fuck me, and they don't, their head's a bit all over the place. Because there's a man I'm watching just now called Joe Dispenza. He's all about the mindset. So what happens is if you think about that trauma, it releases a chemical and it relates to that emotion, how you felt that time. So if you were thinking about maybe your youth or all the trauma, it releases that chemical, so the brain doesn't know if that's happening in the present moment or back in the past, and that's when it can trigger all the bad stuff. So for you, when you went through your capture and stuff, how did you deal with that? Did you deal with it pretty easy, or did you try and block it out, or how did you deal with it? Have you struggled with PTSD?
I've struggled with a lot of symptoms that are linked to PTSD, like sleep loss and hyper vigilance in places and stuff like that. And those are all atypical symptoms, and a lot of veterans will tell you they have same symptoms to more or less a degree, to the effect where they're impacting on the lives and stuff. I think right after the incident, it was so raw, I just kind of got on with it. But kind of research has shown that any really high traumatic incident you've been through can take up to about 12 years to reach a peak, and that's sometimes when it can surface. And it can be triggered for a whole number of different reasons depending on what's going on in your personal life. For me, I felt like over the last probably 2 years, that's come to a peak for me, where it's come to a period where I've lost sleep, I've overanalyzed things, I'm hypervigilant in places. Or I've had elements of those symptoms before, but they haven't been as bad to the effect where you're losing sleep, where you forget where you're going and you become clumsy and stuff like that. And those are all pretty typical symptoms.
So you must have had a good did you have strong people around you as well, friends you could speak to? Because you've done great things, especially with the motivational speaking, and then being on is the Channel 4 SAS, Who Dares Wins.
Yeah, and I think the TV that particular series has shown one side of it, and that mental side always trumps the physical, and that mental side is key to everything, and they kind of balance each other. And anybody, yourself, when you're balancing the mental and the physical, they complement each other. If you feel good, you train better, and if you train better, you feel well, and they kind of all endorphins are going, and they complement each other.
I'm just going to pause it there. I love what he's just shared then about the mental and the physical and the connection between those. He mentions the word balance, I think, in there as well, possibly. I think that's what I heard. But not so much dwelling or harping on the comments around balance. I just love the piece that he's talking about when you feel well, like either mentally, emotionally, all that sort of stuff, it can transfer into other things like your training, and the reverse is true. So when you're training well, that physical, looking after yourself physically, that can transfer to a lot of mental health and wellness as well. And it also, for me anyway, at least in my experience, correlates to resilience and being able to cope and adapt with stressful and or strenuous situations. And that's one of the main things that I speak with when people ask me about tips and that I have to develop the mindset and mental toughness or mental resilience and all that sort of thing. A lot of mine, I can still connect to when I was training for selection in New Zealand. A lot of mine connected to me doing physically hard training. And by me putting myself through physically hard training, or at least it was physically hard to me anyway, as a blinking 20-year-old, 20-year-old, it just transferred over. It helped me during the selection process, my first selection in NZ and going through that, and it enabled me to be able to just keep moving forward, keep putting one foot in front of the other, get given lots of punishments and push-ups and stuff by the staff, have lots of thoughts around how am I going, am I doing all right, do the staff think that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I never thought if the staff liked me, but I had a lot of those thoughts. I'm representing my battalion, Victor Company, 1RNZIR, 1st Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment in Palmerston North. Like, I had all those same sorts of thoughts, worries, concerns. You might call them fears, like, oh man, if I fail, I'm going to let my company down, my platoon down, my battalion down, etc., etc. But having put myself through my own little crucible in terms of physical preparation, it helped, and I still feel like that today. When I put myself through physical exercise challenges, for want of a better term, it just helps. It helps me to be able to find a way instead of finding an excuse, is what I'll say. So, yeah, let's get back to what Colin was talking about in terms of them complementing each other.
And one of those is out of sync, it always affects the other one. But for me, the mental side is always that one that's had control. And you look at any of the elite sports stars, when it comes to the top level and they're in a final and it's 6 sets all in a tiebreaker, it's a penalty shootout. It's nothing to do with technical ability. It's nothing to do with physical. It's all mental.
It comes down with the mindset, because they always go that extra, but the extra inch is the fear. They learn how to control it. You've got, whether you're going to do stand-up comedy or go do acting, whatever it is, motivational speaking, the fear's always there, but we can utilise it to either create or else we go backwards, and the fear also destroys, because everything is the mindset, and I'll constantly keep repeating it. So what's the next steps?
It's cool how he's mentioned that as well as the host, James English, but what Colin was talking about, the mindset always trumps, and that it takes, you develop that mindset. Why I keep mentioning those two are combined, the mental and the physical. You develop that by getting up, getting out, and doing the things that you know you need to do, or you know that you should do, so that you can better prepare, so that you can be able to accomplish the thing that you want to accomplish. Because if you don't have that, if you just go, oh, she'll be right, I won't worry about that, or I'll just leave it, or can't be bothered getting up today, it's rainy, it's windy, it's cold, it's dark, it's nice and warm in the bed, all that sort of stuff. If you can't switch this to get yourself out of that mindset and that process to get up and get out and go do what you know you're supposed to do, you are going to struggle if you're looking to go on a selection course, or you struggle with a lot of things in general, I think, anyway. So I love how he's talking about that there. It doesn't matter about skill or technical ability and that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong, my opinion, for what it's worth, I think that stuff absolutely helps, to the point where you can develop an consciousness level of skill, if that makes sense, whereby you're not even thinking about it. Like driving is probably the easiest one that people that can drive can relate to. Everything's awkward and hard and difficult and challenging at the start when you're first learning, and then you just develop this consciousness, for want of a better term, what just becomes intrinsic, inherent. You know what to do, you know what to check for first when you're about to start the car. You know, whether you're driving a manual or an automatic, you just know how to get the clutch and accelerator operation going, and to change the gears and all that sort of stuff. You know how to avoid the vehicle from bunny hopping, which is all those little mistakes and things that you would make, or that at least I made when I was learning how to drive a manual. So yeah, good comments. I'm getting a lot from what Colin is talking about, but I'm also thinking about Dion Jensen. So based in Palmerston North, founder, director of the Lion Academy, former soldier, former police officer, former private security operator, got author, speaker, got the book out and resources out around the good news about PTSD. Yep, that's right, the good news about PTSD. Highly regarded, and just, yeah, he's a good dude. Actually, while I'm here, he's got, I'll put it in the comments of this description of this video. He's got, I think it said New Zealand's first or world's first suicide summit happening in Palmy this month. I think it's 16th or 17th. I'll try and confirm, get those details, and I'll paste the proper detail in the description of here. But yeah, he's a good dude. Anybody got questions, concerns, struggling with PTSD themselves, or just want to learn a bit about it just for your own information, so you might be able to help somebody else that may be struggling with it, then I highly recommend Dion Jensen Lion Academy. I'm actually going through some of the resources and stuff at the moment that he's got, not because I feel like I'm struggling with PTSD or anything. I think probably much like Colin, I probably have symptoms of at different times, but yeah, I'm not in any way, shape or form feeling like I'm going down this dark hole and that I need help and all that sort of stuff. But it's really cool for me to get a better understanding of the work that Dion has done, because from what I've seen and what I've read, he's managed to help a heck of a lot of people through his work. So anyway, let's jump back into Colin.
That you think should be getting put in place then? Because obviously, this probably happens every day with 10 people getting lost in 10 days and committing suicide. Obviously, the media is the mainstream media has jumped on it. So what should be the plans or the things to get in place to try and create the change and create the massive awareness to say, right, enough's enough. It needs to fucking stop. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. In the short term, we need a 24/7 trusted device, app, website, phone line that veterans know they can tap into and speak to like-minded people. So for me, that's training veterans to speak to veterans, not them speaking to doctors and psychs. They'll do so much good, but you want to speak to someone that speaks the same language, that has been through the same stuff, because they can relate back to you how they or their friends have come through the other side of that dark.
Sorry, I love what he's just mentioned then, because that's exactly who Dion Jensen is, eh? So it's interesting that I was prompted to bring up Dion Jensen on some of his earlier comments, and now he's been asked, what was he asked? Asked about, I think, what does he think we need or could be put in place to help try to prevent people from taking their own lives. And it's cool to hear Colin, obviously he's thought about this stuff, eh? So I wonder if there's anything in place, but he's talking about a 24/7 helpline, an app, I think he said, or a website that veterans can go to. I think an important part for that is that it's, and this is some of the work that Dion Jensen does as well. It's not just for military veterans. It could be police, it could be firefighters, it could be paramedics, it could be anyone. Doctors, nurses, school teachers. It could be, I think PTSD can affect everyone, anyone at any time. That's just my opinion. And that's based on what I know of Dion's work and what he's spoken about. But it's cool to hear Colin speak about this. And the part that he mentioned, was it about training veterans to speak with veterans? That's awesome, because in Dion Jensen, that's what you get. Not that I don't think he has capacity to speak to everybody, but the work that he's done and how he's put it together with your subconscious protectors and that sort of stuff that he's got within the Good News About PTSD, which just sort of helps you get a better understanding of who you are and why you have and why you behave the way you behave. It's awesome. So he puts it in real easy to understand terms for soldiers to understand it. And if I can, and if I can relate to some of that as a soldier, then I'm pretty sure, everybody else is going to be able to relate to it, because it's real simple words, and he gives really good examples of what they're doing and how we can reclaim control of that stuff. So awesome, Colin. Really liking what he's saying here. So we'll carry on with this.
Dark tunnel.
This is a Milo, by the way. Some of those that have said, are you having a morning coffee before the 4 o'clock training sessions in the morning? No. I usually don't have anything to eat or drink when I get up first thing in the morning. Just get up, do my warm-up, and then get into some training. I'll drink usually water after, so I'll finish that. It's about 1.5 liters during the day. Look at this, going off on a tangent, eh? And then this is a Milo. So anyway, now we'll jump back.
Whereas a psychologist will give you it from a, Freudian perspective or stuff. And I'm not saying they won't do good, but I think people that speak your language will probably help you along that path better. So that's the first kind of short-term stuff, and we're doing a lot of that at the minute with Who Dares Cares, and JP Morgan are building up our app so that hopefully at the end of this month will go live.
That's awesome. So, okay, he's just answered one of the questions that I had. He said that's what we're doing now, so he's clearly working with people. I think he said JP Morgan, and they'll hopefully be live. I haven't had a look, still haven't had a look to see when this interview was done. But that's great. So wheels are in motion, eh? In terms of what Colin and his team and that are doing. That's brilliant. That's fantastic.
And that'll be a 24/7 capability. But long term, I think the MOD have to tie into local communities and networks and be able to have a plan from when a person leaves all the way through until the end of their life, because they have a duty of care. That duty of care, if you're signing up to say, I'm going to put my life on the line, my family will be my second priority, and I'm going to go and do all this stuff, then there has to be a duty of care that as you leave and go into Civvy Street, you're going to give them the best chances because there's a support network around you.
Wow. I'm pausing that there. There's a lot there. Just when I'm listening to that, thoughts that come to mind is how well thought out Colin has processed the needs, and his is based on his lived experience as well. I had no idea when I was working with Colin in and out of Baghdad, when he come to our team on the NBC contract through Pilgrim Security Group, I had no idea that he had been captured. He sort of brushes over it. I think I mentioned that in the first reaction. He was captured for a day, held for a day, but then I think the lads from 2-2 got him out. I don't know whether they went in and got him out or whether it was a negotiation. I have no idea. Hopefully we'll get to that in here. If not, then I'm going to have to hunt around and try to find where Colin talks about that. But he just, there was no indication, no comments, no bravado from Colin. What I'm seeing here is the same guy that I saw when I was working with him in and out of Baghdad. So to know that that's what happened and to just find that out however many years down the track is crazy to me. Just thinking about how calm, cool, collected this guy was when I was working with him over there. So anyway, coming back to his comments around the MOD, the bigger picture, Ministry of Defence, to have a wraparound support service around the individual for when they transition out into civilian street and for the rest of their life. I think that's what he said. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he said for the rest of their life, because he provides the rationale that, if they're going to sign the dotted line, commit to serving, and, ultimately if they have to, risk it all and give it all for those that have, but also those that may not necessarily have done that, but they've been prepared to sign the line and gone away, multiple deployments for those people, etc., and have come close or wounded physically, mentally, etc. Their family has come second. That's powerful. That's a big. That would be an interesting conversation to listen to hear how the MOD and people involved in that, what they might do and or how they might act. I don't know if anything like that would happen to provide a wraparound support for that individual or for all of those individuals for the rest of their life. I don't know how that would look. Do I think it should happen? Man, 100%. I agree with what Colin's saying. That would be awesome. Do I think it would happen in my lifetime? Probably not. And this is just my 2 cents for what it's worth. This is some of my reasons why. Not to counter what Colin has said, not at all, because I 100% agree and support. That would be fantastic. That would be awesome if something like that was done around the world for the Defence Force personnel that do what they do. But the thoughts that come to mind when he mentioned that initially was, I hear you and I agree. But also the counter to that is, for me, if I just put myself in the frame for this here, not to try to be selfish or anything like that, but if I utilize myself as an example, I volunteered to join the Defence Force. This is just my thoughts here, and I'm sure MOD people and members of Parliament or whatever would probably try to throw that in Defence Force people's faces as well, so I'm going to throw it in my own face. I volunteered to go and join the Defence Force. I understood, I knew why I wanted to join as well. I wanted to go be at the pointy end of the spear, which to me was the Special Air Service. So those 3 things, I did that knowingly. Did I understand the potential consequences and risks and or struggles that I would have when I left the military and transitioned into civilian life? No, I didn't. Did I receive any offerings of support or training or education to help with that transition out? From memory, I don't recall receiving a tap on the shoulder or being sat down and having a conversation with my leaders and saying, hey, do you want to go through some transition stuff, preparation for you going into civilian street? It's a different world, blah, blah, blah. I never had any of that. And I don't know of any former soldiers that, just from a military setting, I don't know of any former soldiers that had those types of conversations. At the same time, to counter myself with regards to that comment, and that not happening, excuse me, did I need to wait for somebody to come and tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, do you want to have a chat about this transition thing? You realize you're going into a very different environment. The civilian world is very different to your time in the Defence Force, and you might want to do some planning and preparation before stepping off and going into that domain, which is going to be unfamiliar to you. So no, I didn't proactively seek to get some support. I didn't proactively seek of my own free will to try to educate myself around, are there some potential challenges, stumbling blocks that I might come across? Why? Because I didn't think of it. I just, it wasn't a thought that came to my mind. I guess I've put myself in the frame of when I'd be back, I spent time with my wife and kids. I was essentially out in Civilian Street, go to the shops, go to the kids' school, go out camping, just doing family bits and pieces and stuff, but I wasn't and hadn't been exposed to working in a civilian environment, in a civilian organization, company, etc., with other people that didn't have military experience and or the same sort of military mindset, attitude, work ethic, values, etc. So not that the civilians that I worked with were bad people. They were some really, really cool people, and I learned a heck of a lot from them. But it's just a different culture, different environment, different way of speaking, different way of communicating, different way of giving feedback, which isn't being passive aggressive and it's not being critical. It's just delivered in a way to try to make you better, but it's received by the person in a negative way. They get their back up, they become confrontational or defensive or whatever, and they don't like it. And all of those things and more were just, like mind-blowing for me. It's like, holy heck, how can you be upset with what I'm saying? So anyway, coming back to the comment around for the rest of your life, that's why I don't think it would happen in my lifetime. Do I think it should and could be something that could be really helpful? Yeah, 100%. It would set the soldiers up for success in civilian life, just like the military. And so this is probably not my closing argument, but I'll try and make this my closing comments. Same way we try to set new soldiers up for success in the military through the initial testing, the screening, the physicals, the medicals, the criminal checks, etc. That's just before you get to get the confirmation to say, yeah, you can go in. The aptitude testing that they have as well. Getting through all of that, then getting on basic training, getting issued all your kits, getting an orientation, showing where you are, your section, your barracks, who your section commander is, etc., going through all of that stuff, then going through the basic training, then on to core training, then into your unit. So those same steps that we take to set an individual who's fresh from Civvy Street, who's fresh out of high school, to set them up for success in the military. That's why I agree 100% with what Colin's talking about. It would be great to have a system or a process that takes as much care and thought and time and attention to detail to help those individuals, whether they be soldiers, whether they be firefighters, police, whether they be doctors, nurses, paramedics, whatever, school teachers, if they need to, or those that need it, to have a process that can help with the same sort of transitioning into the civilian world. I think that would be a beautiful thing to have happen. I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense. But again, do I think it would happen in my lifetime? Probably not, which is a shame. But yeah, he makes some really awesome points. What's our time? Yeah, 24 minutes. I'm going to keep going for a little bit longer because I am really enjoying this. Apologies, I haven't gotten through much of this interview yet, and the whole interview is only 45 minutes. Anyway, back to Colin.
It is scary to think though that the numbers are so high. Since you've been in the army, have you lost a lot of people from suicide as well?
Yeah, I've lost a lot of people, and one of the reasons we set up the charity is because after my public profile was raised a little bit through the TV and stuff, I was getting contacted through social media by guys that were struggling, and women, and just saying, yeah, I'm struggling to get out of bed this morning, I'm struggling with alcohol, with drugs, getting a job, my confidence, and I would lose these people every few weeks. One would just disappear.
Sorry, I just got to quickly, button is what I'm doing. Sorry, Colin, cutting you off. But man, what he's just saying really resonates with me. Like since I've decided to go all in on this channel and it becoming whatever it becomes, I don't have a vision board up anywhere, and I don't have a then I'm going to do this and then do that and then do this and do that. Like I've got a to-do list and I've got all these other things, but I don't have. I'm flying by the seat of my pants with regards to the channel. And I'm doing things that I enjoy. I'm doing things and trying to deliver it in a way that hopefully will connect, resonate, and or help and uplift in positive ways other people. And so hearing Colin, when he's spoken about his profile was raised through doing what he was doing, then he was contacted. People were reaching out to him. And I can resonate with that. There's a few people, probably not to the same level or scale as what Colin has had reaching out to him, but I've had a number of people reach out with some similar things. Some people struggling with, their family relationship stuff. Some people struggling. Some of them are friends. Some of them are not friends that I don't know from a bar of soap in regards to employment. People that have reached out in regards to their training and their health and well-being, and how they've let their physical health and well-being slide, and that has impacted their mental health and well-being. And so going back to comments that Colin made earlier, it's interesting, but it's powerful. It's an awesome not only do I take it as an opportunity, but it's a responsibility that I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to try to embrace. I could either embrace it or I could try to push it away and go, no, I do need to take care for myself and my family and make sure that boundaries and stuff are in place, which is fine. I think I've got enough in myself and with my wife and family to be able to identify where those boundaries are, and I can communicate that to individuals if I think they're maybe overstepping the mark. I haven't experienced that at all. I've been, people have been really respectful. People have been really kind and generous. So I have no issue making myself available in the way and within the times that I have to be able to spend time with those individuals to help them. Whether it's for selection, that was probably the catalyst, I think. People aspiring to join the Special Air Service and preparing for selection for New Zealand and or Australia. So yeah, it's cool to know that Colin has made himself available. It's sad to hear that he's lost some people in the process. So we'll have a listen to this and let him finish off that before I pause this again, because that's 27 minutes now. But Kyle Morgan comes to mind just before I hit the pause button again and let it carry on playing. You have, what is it? If you have the ability, it's your responsibility. So yeah, it's cool. I have some ability. I have a level of ability at the moment, having been through some, like we all have, through some challenges, dark times, etc. And I've been able to come out the other side. And if that helps anyone, then it's my responsibility, part of my responsibility, not that I can do everything on my own, but if somebody reaches out, then I have an opportunity, but I also have the responsibility to respond. So let's get back in the comments.
Appear off the radar, and I'd find out they committed suicide. And having spoken through to Cami through at Hamilton, we decided to set up Who Dares Cares. And since then, I'm glad to say we've saved a lot of lives, but we can only do with what we have. So it's growing networks and having them in place, so that no matter where you are in the UK, there's somewhere for you to tap into.
And where can people contact you then? Where can people get this information who are in the struggle? Is it just servicemen, or can it be anybody?
No, one of the things about Who Dares Cares is it's for anybody that's encountering stress.
Right.
We advertise emergency services, so we have people from fire service, prison service, NHS, police, but primarily most of the people, as you would expect, are veterans that get in touch with stress issues.
That's awesome. I'm going to pause it there because it's coming up to 30 minutes. Stoked to hear that it's for anyone encountering and going through stress. Corrections, that's cool that he mentioned that, because I didn't even think to mention that. Yeah, but yeah, corrections officers go through a hell of a time for large parts of their work when their shifts. So yeah, there's such a broad, wide, it's for anyone. And I love that summary that he mentioned, for anybody encountering and going through stress. To be able to have a resource like that to reach out to. This is an awesome conversation in and around PTSD. It's sad, heavy topic in and around people that Colin has mentioned that he's lost. So finding out, a little bit later, I think he mentioned that that they've lost some along the way, people that have reached out to him. So yeah, I would hate that to happen to me personally, people that I've been lucky enough and that I'm still currently sort of just working with from time to time, and they reach out when they feel like they need to or want to. I would hate for anything to happen to them. So yeah, I can only imagine how heavy that is for Colin to have to carry, because you build a connection with that person, even though you don't know them from a bar of soap, and but that connection, you've built a connection then, and that stays. And so when that connection is disconnected because somebody wasn't able to keep turning up, or they felt like they couldn't stay in the fight anymore, it has a knock-on effect. And that's why, I try to share there are people that care about you, there are people that need you here. And if I could share this as bluntly but still as kindly and as respectfully as I can, don't be selfish by taking your own life. Don't do it. So you impact other people more than you realize when you do that, if you do that. So reach out instead. So I love what Colin has shared. Anyway, I'm going to pause this one here. I appreciate your time. I hope you got something out of this. If not from my ramblings, then from what Colin has shared. I'll make sure that the link is in the description to this full interview, so you can just watch it without me interjecting. Apologies for interjecting so much in this one. I know we haven't gone through much of this interview, but it's a heavy topic and it's some powerful stuff in there, and I am interested in a lot of some of the other stuff that Colin is talking about. Definitely supportive of the kaupapa, the kōrero that he's spoken about, the words that he's used and the things that he envisions to get in place to help people, whether they be veterans or anybody experiencing or encountering or going through stress. I will put Dion Jensen's link in the description as well for anybody that wants to go and check out his stuff. Again, you don't have to be going through stress. You don't have to be a military veteran. It is, it's a helpful tool. And so once I've gone through reviewing all that information and going through the steps that he's got in there, then I'll be able to speak about it, hopefully, in a bit more, with a bit better understanding, so, and able to articulate that better. So as always, thank yous very much for your time. Anything that you give here, your words, your encouragement, your input, the comments, the likes, the shares, the subscribers, thank yous all very much. Thank you to the members of this channel. That is huge. Like, everybody, regardless of what you give, is huge. It's awesome. I'm very, very grateful. The members have chosen to go an extra step or a few steps further and support this channel in other ways, and I'm very, very grateful for that. As always, anybody going through any challenges, trials, difficulties, hardships, I just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight. Know that you matter, know that people care about you, that, there are people in this world that will be heavily affected and impacted in a negative, heavy-hearted, saddened way if you don't keep turning up and if you don't keep staying in the fight. You have to want it. You have to want to be here. And I know it sucks and it's miserable at times and it's hard to want to be in a place where you feel like things are against you. But this place does want you here. And those people do want you here and need you here. So keep turning up, keep staying in the fight. Know that the sun will shine again. Know that you are closer to those brighter days than you think. And that you are closer to that light at the end of the tunnel than you think as well. So as always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And like Colin's part on here, who dares cares, I think is what I heard him say with the charity that they've got there. And until the next video, milestone or post, a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation and gratitude for you all.